Hello Tamers, and welcome back to another deck profile. This one's going to be a little bit unconventional. Normally I have all of the cards with me or built together in an actual real life deck. Unfortunately this time around that's not quite viable for me, so thank goodness for the Digimon Card Game Online Simulator. It is a free community sort of like access thing. I love this simulator. I love it so much. I can build any of my decks on it, and so I decided to build this deck on here because why the heck not? And I'm going to show you what it is today. Please ignore some of these because this is actually going to be an Argomon deck. I am calling it Rhythm of the Wild. It did not fit in here, so let's get into this. It is all about Argomon, and the reason it's all about Argomon is, look, I was there when Digisorption was hit. The real ones know. We all understand what it's like. I was there when HPD was hit. Again, the real ones know. So having an Argomon deck come back in Secret Crisis was kind of a weird feeling. So we're going to see what we can experiment with a little bit here. It's mostly going to be Argomon Tribal with some cards that I think might be fun in it. So we're going to start off with the eggs, and we're going to start off with the original Argomon egg, which is when this Digimon becomes unsuspended, you gain a memory during your main phase. Or sorry, during your unsuspend phase. And then the form of the new Argomon egg, which lets you give your Argomon blocker on your opponent's turn as long as it has Argomon in the name, which actually in this deck might not happen as much as you think it does. I know, what a wild concept. So our rookies are going to be 4 of the Argomon from BT17. This is going to be the one that has an on play. You look at the top 3, you add a rhythm, you add an Argomon. Honestly, if you hit the rhythm off of this, you're amazing at the game because it is so difficult to find 4 of the cards in your deck with just this searcher. But it's really the only way to find it unless you want to use like a green tamer search. And honestly, I kind of wanted to go with Lopmon in this deck because I think Alliance is really funny for Argomon. And it's just neat, right? Like you can just swing, and then you have a bunch of on-deletions for the new Argomon stuff that gives you memory. So I think the Lopmon here is just kind of funny. It is only at a 3 of just because we are going for a more Argomon themed deck. And on that note, the last 4 rookies in this are going to be the original BT2 Argomons. They're just neat little 2-drop 3k bodies. A nice way to memory choke your opponent. I miss Rookie Rush so much with playing this. But this level 3 Argomon, honestly, it's so hard to like evo this in the back sometimes, and it's really depressing when that's your only rookie, but needs must. This is just a nice little other Argomon to have just as a target for your later level 6, but it's honestly just there because 1, it's a 2-drop, and 2, it's another Argomon. Let's go into our 4s. They should have hit this too, in all honesty. It's the original Digisorption Argomon from BT2. So Digisorption essentially is, if you haven't encountered it before for some reason, it just means that when this Digimon would evolve from your hand, you can suspend one of your Digimon to reduce the cost by the Digisorption cost. So essentially it's like a built-in hidden potential discovered in most of them. So what it means is Digisorption 2 is you're going to suspend one of your Digimon, and then you're going to reduce the cost of this evolution by 2. So it becomes free at the cost of suspending one of your Digimon though. But there's a lot of green cards out there that say when one of your Digimon becomes suspended by an effect, or a Digimon becomes suspended by an effect, then you're able to go ahead and gain a memory or some sort of thing. This is just a 4 because again, it's a bunch of Argomon, and it's funny because it's just a turbo evolution cost. It's honestly just like sort of built in either memory boost or the trainings without really actually having to play those cards. And then your other 4s are going to be the new Argomons from BT17, which says when Digivolving, if you don't have a rhythm, you can play a rhythm. Nothing worse than evolving into this and not being able to play the rhythm, but that's okay. We're really good at the game and we can come back from that, right? Actually, the inherent for this one is also really nice, the on-deletion gain of memory. So your only worry is about like sort of floodgates, right? But also for those of you paying attention, that means we're only playing 8 level 4s in here, so please be careful with your level 4s. There's not a lot of great ways to recycle them, and if you can't find a 4, you're in a little bit of trouble with this deck. But moving on to our 5s, we are going to be running a 4 of the new BT17 Argomon. If you played the pre-release, you know that this card was a freaking beast in pre-release. So when you digivolve this card by suspending up to 5 tamers, for each tamer suspend this effect, you reduce the digivolution cost by 1. And then on your opponent's turn, none of their tamers can unsuspend. And then on deletion, if you have 4 more Argomon in your trash, you can play a level 6 Argomon from your hand without paying the cost. Important to note that when it says 5 tamers on the field, it means your opponent's tamers too. So you know what? Hybrid players, yeah, go ahead, have fun playing all of your tamers. I'm going to use this for this deck, right? The only downside to this is if you don't have a level 6 Argomon in your hand, it feels kind of bad, in all honesty. But hey, the goal is that if you draw enough cards that you'll have the level 6 Argomon in your hand to be able to play it for free. And then, of course, the one of Argomon from BT2, which rightfully so, they did restrict this one. It is the Digisorption 3 Argomon. That also has the one attacking. You can play a level 3 green Digimon card from your hand, suspend without paying its cost. Hey, so you know, I was playing this card a couple formats ago in my Rosemon deck, and I suddenly remembered why this card is super busted. Because the one attacking is not once per turn, and at the time for old Digimon, like original like 1.0, 1.5 like Digimon, the one attacking once per turn part didn't really matter. And then you get into current Digimon where it is, that thing not having once per turn is so scary. It only really makes sense if you have sort of like a card that can like make use of it. So actually it's kind of why the Lopmon is in here, because you can play the Lopmon, and the Lopmon, because you don't have to suspend the Lopmon, it's just the main you give something else alliance. If you have another body, you can just use it to give this Argomon alliance. I think it's hilarious. And so that's all for the level 5 Argomons, but there are a couple other level 5s in here just because I thought the level 5 count was really low just to run the Argomons. I really like the concept of Digisorption, and they did sort of like nerf it after these couple sets because they realized, hey, free evolution cost, even at the cost of suspending one of your Digimon, pretty busted. And we went, yeah, so I'm putting in Quantumon in here. The Pistmon, which is a Pulsemon evolution. So it also has Digisorption 2 for a 3-cost evolution, so you still have to pay 1. I was waffling between this and the Cherrymon that lets you redirect to one of your suspended Digimon, but I think the Pistmon here is just funnier because the inherit is for each of your other suspended Digimon you get plus 1k. So if you have this and you have this Argomon, I don't know, man, there's just some funny stuff that can happen. But I just also really wanted to focus on this version of Digisorption where you get the inherit for it. So I don't know, I wanted to try something new. I've played with Cherrymon before, and I really like Pulsemon, so I thought, why not? Let's give this time in the sun. And then, Parrotmons. This is also from BT17. I just thought it was funny to have it as a security effect because then you get to play this if you have no other Digimon. There's a lot of ways where like your board can get wiped because you're playing a lot of like smaller bodies up over here, and there's a lot of like really easy ways for your opponent to just sort of get rid of your board if you don't have ways to protect it. So I think the Parrotmon's funny because, hey, there is a chance at one point it will get hit in security, and it's going to feel so good when you can play this out, especially because it just gives you an avenue to go into a level 6. Speaking of level 6s, yeah, I put Quantumon in here. Why? Just, I don't know, because I didn't like the other Argomons in here. I tested out some of them and it just didn't feel really good. At least with this Quantumon, you have a way to remove either a card from your opponent's field or recover security for yourself if you need to. But also it gives you protection against things if you name proper, like, whatever type you want, like the Tamer option Digimon. But also being able to look at being able to look at your opponent's security, that's just always really, really nice to be able to do. Yeah, it's a really high cost of evolution for 5, but guys, green is very good at reducing costs. I'm of the mindset that as long as the Hidden Potential Discovered is even allowed at a 1 of in any single green deck, that any green good Digimon that we get is always going to be a high cost evolution, because being able to give us something like that for free is disgusting, right? So, I don't know, Quantumon's funny to me. And then the next 4 level 6s here are going to be the Argomon from BT17, which has an on-play and a when digivolving thing, so you can place up to 4 level 5 or lower Argomon from your trash as the bottom of their sources. Then you can delete any number of your opponent's Digimon whose levels add up to 4 or less, and then for every 2 Argomon in the source, you can add to the maximum. And then it gets plus 1k for every 2 Argomon in its Digivolution cards, and then none of your opponent's Tamers can unsuspend on their turn. So this is just a nice way to get a really like big stack going once your small Argomons are getting deleted. The other big reason why I like cut down on the level 6 Argomons is because this specific Argomon says level 5 or lower, right? And I think this is the maximum amount of Argomons we can get from other like sets, including the eggs. So the eggs do count for this, which I think is quite honestly like super great, because then you can give it blocker and then you can give it that extra unsuspend. So honestly, if you feel like you want the blocker more, you can like switch out. Maybe if you want the blocker less, you can switch out the eggs around. But I think when I was testing this very briefly, I found that the blocker just came up a little bit more. And then this is an Argomon from BT5. This one was just really funny, and also that limited format. So it also has a Digisorption too. So you're still gonna have to pay most of the time for its evolution cost. And so when Digivolve, you suspend all of your opponent's tamers, and then they don't unsuspend. It's just a funny way to just tamer stun people. I think we're still in a really weird format where tamers are such an important part of a lot of players' sort of game plan. So being able to suspend their tamers is just always really, really funny. The other Argomon is for every, I think, suspend... I forget what the exact wording is, but it gives you secure attack +1. It just... The cost for evolution just didn't feel worth it. It was a 5-cost evolution, but as weird as this sounds, if I can't Digisorb something, I'd rather, like, bite the bullet and Evo for... like the 4 than Evo for the 5, right? Like that one memory can make such a difference. And then of course no green deck can be a green deck top end without, unfortunately, Quartzmon. I really wanted to put a different sort of level 7 in here, but there just wasn't anything that really felt great to me. So when in doubt, we just slap a Quartzmon in there. Why? Because it's really stinking good. You're suspending a bunch of stuff, so honestly that part doesn't matter to you, but being able to like get memory back for it is just also really nice. I know, Quartzmon, I know that it's been easier and easier to remove from the format, but I also think that right now it's still just a really funny Digimon to play. You could also just throw in a Death X in here. Just, honestly, Death X is probably one of those like, hey, do you have a problem? Yeah, it's okay. Just stick a Death X in your deck. Why? Yeah, you're always going to be able to play it for a reduced cost, right? There's never a time where like a Death X feels like a bad idea. It's just that with stuff like Death X and Quartzmon lately, it feels like they've become easier and easier to remove in the format, which is why I think they've been tapering off. But look, green decks don't have very many options for like a very good top end. Honestly, it either feels like Quantumon or Quartzmon at this point. And I'm just going to put both in here because I think I needed a little bit more oomph for the deck when there wasn't enough Argomon that I was comfortable putting in here. And that moves us on to our tamers. I'm putting 2 Mimis in here. Why? Because I need a memory tamer, and 2 Mimi just is still, I think, the single-handed best green tamer in the game. It's a great memory setter, goes in any green deck, and then if you have a level 5 or higher green Digimon, you can suspend her to either hatch or to move a Digimon from the breeding area to your battle area. I still think she's like super uncontested. Like 2 Mimis is basically having like 2 Louis and Ukomon out. You just don't get memory back for it. I still think to this day she is one of the best tamers out there. And then our other last couple of tamers here is going to be Rhythm, obviously, because this is the Rhythm of the Wild deck, and so it's about her and her partnership with Argomon. I have not seen the movie, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm sure there's a reason why she also deals with Argomon in her card. Essentially, she is a 4-cost tamer, which is a little hard to swallow in all honesty because she's not even a memory setter. However, when an effect suspends one of your Digimon, you can suspend this tamer, and then when this tamer becomes suspended, you gain a memory, and then if you have an Argomon or yellow Digimon with Argomon or Greymon, you draw 1. Yeah, I don't know. It feels difficult to swallow. If anything, like because of like her high cost, you could change these Lopmons into the Terriermon that lets you play a tamer for a reduced cost. Make her a 2-cost instead. I just think Alliance is really funny. Will I try out Terriermon? Probably. Do I think Alliance is funnier? Oh, absolutely. But yeah, so I think Rhythm is just still... Rhythm is also just a concept of like the other Chessmon tamers that also let you like gain memory, even though they're also 4-cost. And then I moved on to options. I was playing around with this one the most. I think this is the part where I had the most fun with it. I put in poison powders in here. It's really only a 2-cost for the most part if you can get a tamer on the field, but other than that, it's a 3-cost option. It just says until the end of your opponent's turn, all the Digimon gain all turns when this Digimon becomes suspended and loses memory. I just enjoy sort of effects like that. It's just a more expensive Ice Wall. It's a worse Ice Wall, but nothing can like beat Ice Wall, right? That's why they limited it to 1. I just think Poison Powder is funny. And imagine it's like their first security check and they're trying to swing for game with like 1 memory left. Anyway. It's stackable, so if you really wanted to pay like 4 memory or 6 memory for it, sure, why not knock yourself out? I think it's a neat card. Obviously agility training is in here. Even though we have Digisorption, this is just a good way to search for cards in the deck that you might be missing. And so whether that means like you whiffed on the rhythm search or that you're missing a rookie or anything like that, I promise you, trainings in this deck particularly, even with the Digisorption, is still just a really good card. I only putting it in 3 of though, just because I think sometimes 4 trainings is a little overkill, and you don't always really need a 4 for trainings. And then the last 2 options is I think RoyalNuts is a funny card. RoyalNuts is a 1-cost option card from like BT5, which honestly feels like a forgotten format in a lot of ways right now, but it's just 5 cards from the top of your deck, and you add a Digimon card with the disruption among them to your hand, and you place everything else to the bottom of your deck. Why did I put this in here? Well, because I put in a bunch of Disruption cards. That's why I put the Pistmon in here. That's why the Argomon's here. It's really only hitting 4, 5, 6, 7 cards in your deck technically, but it's funny when it works. It's just a neat card. And then, of course, last but not least, Hidden Potential Discovered, which honestly needs an explanation. I love this card. This card is one of my favorite cards ever. I will cry every single day of my life that it was limited to 1. I will understand why it was limited to 1. This card just helps win you games a lot of the times. It's Disruption on steroids, honestly. You suspend one of your Digimon, and then, the next time one of your Digimon digivolves into this turn, you can suspend one of your Digimon to reduce the memory cost of the Digivolution by 5. So, honestly, it's just funny, right? But yeah, this was kind of haphazardly put together in a way where I was like, hey, Argomon is really funny and I like green, so why not? And I genuinely miss the way that Argomon used to play, and I love this card a lot. When they first came out with like the alternate art for this and like the dash packs or the tamer packs or whatever they used to be called, I looked so hard for this card because I thought it was really cool and I liked the way it looked better than the weird pillar one. So yeah, it's kind of neat to see that like there's some random cards from way back when that are really getting back into it. So I don't know. I think this deck is really fun. Will I build it in paper? I don't know. I've built too many decks in paper from before, and honestly DCGO is just a good way to like curtail that. A lot of the decks that I built in paper are decks that I've been thinking about for a really long time and that I've been working on. So again, this is just such a nice resource to be able to test out decks that I'm just like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do it. And on that note, I'm actually going to be playtesting this deck, so please look forward to the online gameplay for this one, while me and my opponents will try to figure out what the heck this deck exactly does, right? And again, that's why the Quartzmon is here, because I need some way to close out games, and what better way than trashing security. So, thank you for watching. Look forward to the gameplay video, because I promise you it'll be me trying to figure out what the heck is going on with this deck. But until then, thanks for dropping by.